Shalom, welcome to our Rabbi Nachman class in Likutei Moharan, Torah 105. We've been working on this Torah for a while. And we've got an interesting moment here where the author, which was usually Rabbi Natan, would be writing down the Torahs, breaks and says, everything that we've heard so far, we've gathered from the students who heard the class, and now we're going to recap it again and play it over again. In other words, they're so attached to the tzaddik's words that they're going to replay them, each guy according to his understanding, according to his recall, and then one of them are going to write it down. And this is not a new thing amongst the Hasidic masters, because they were a mina mitgaber. They were a spring that overflows with Torah. They couldn't even stop to write things down. Their students would be writing it down, they're recording. And so now Rabbi Natan's going to do that again in his redaction of what we've already learned, which is that the traits of God can pray to a higher level of trait. He says it, that God's mercy is a certain level, and then when we need even a higher mercy, we ask him to pray for his higher mercy. And this higher mercy is so elevated and exalted that only God can reach it. So you ask yourself, only God can reach his higher mercy? What are we talking about? Well, we have to understand we're talking about the traits, the midot of an infinite being contracting himself into finite ki'ilu structures in order that man can exist. Because our traits are his traits, but his traits are infinite. And so they need to be not infinite. They need to be finite, so to speak, within each person. And so we have a certain level of mercy, and then our mercy stops. We've all had that moment, where you can't give any more charity, you can't do any more good deeds, you just want to close the door and turn out the lights. There's limits to our love, to our mercy, to compassion. And of course, we want to grow in them. And each time we go back to reality and God sends us another face down with our limitation of mercy, hopefully we break through and show more mercy to the next situation and the next person. And sometimes it's mercy for ourselves because we need that too. Well, it's the same by Hashem. Hashem has a certain level of mercy that he has towards us. And then there's a level where he has to pray to overcome his own level of judgment. Because God is so fair, he has to be fair with himself. And if judgment demands one thing and mercy requests another, it doesn't mean that the mercy is going to win every time. But there are levels where Am Yisrael has to pray for God to access the higher mercy. And this is what he's explaining in the beginning of this last paragraph, that the Hashem is mercy, simple mercy, and the great mercy. And the great mercy is only accessed, and this, by the way, is all from the Zohar, when you have this higher and lower level of any quality, the lower kindness, the upper kindness, the lower judgment, the upper judgment. And he gives us the example that we had earlier also about there's two wealthy people in a city and a person is really bereft and needs money bad, right? And he goes to the rich guy, the first rich guy, the lower rich guy, and he asks him, and he says, I don't have enough for you, but I know a guy who does. And so this first rich guy goes to the super rich guy and says, listen, I know someone who really needs help to save his life, to save his family, to save his business. Can you access some cash for this fellow? And this is an example where we go to Hashem to the lower level of mercy, and we ask him to access the higher mercy, the richer guy in town, right? And so this metaphor he works through all of the beginning of this paragraph. And what we get to is that Hashem has the same traits that we do. They're just infinite and absolute. And they're created by him. It's not like these traits were always there, but they were not always in reality. They were in a hidden state until he created man, until he created the universe. So it's like if you've never built something, then you can't say you've built it. But in your mind, you might have built it, but it's still not in reality. so too the traits of God, until they were revealed in man, they were in hiddenness. There has to be a gilui, a revelation of the quality through something in this world. And therefore, we are part of the creation. We're not just created by God, we are creating with Him creation. Because it's not like you're a sculptor and you make a statue of some kind and put it in a museum and it stays there for the next 100 years. And no, here in this world, we're always connected to the one who's creating us, because it's being created all the time. And that, Rabbi Nachman says, is the highest faith. The faith in the continuous renewal. The renewal that every moment is new, even as we're speaking right now. It's new. It's never happened before. It never happened again. It might be very similar to a lot of other moments, but it's still completely new. And this moment is being renewed all the time. And so, when this person, by the way, he gives us that interesting advice about persons who, God forbid, it happens all the time, need money and they need to borrow. It's not a pleasant thing to borrow. I've been there, right? Until I made a rule, okay, I'm just not borrowing. Because it just makes your life harder. Now you got to pay back 2 people instead of 1. It depends on who's knocking at the door, right? But still, he tells us a very interesting thing. You see here in the dialogue, he shows us how the person who needs the money, he says, I know you want to have mercy on me, and I know that it's hard for you, so you go to the richer man in town and ask him for me. In other words, he's reinforcing the other person's generosity. He's not going in with a negative attitude. Oh, this guy doesn't want to give me anything. This guy, the stocks went down today. Oh, this guy's got problems at home. He doesn't want to open up his checkbook. I've had all those things happen too. But if you come in and say, I know you want to help. I really do. Already, you change the tone. You add an aspect of confidence in the other person's generosity, in the other person's trait. And so too with God. We have to have confidence in Him of answering us. Not neutral. It could be good. It could be bad. Maybe God will answer me. Maybe He won't. No, you have to go into the richest of the rich, the trillionaire of all the creator of the universe himself. Say, I know you want to answer me. I know you want to help me. I know on Yom Kippur you want to forgive me and do a miracle for me and remove all the things that I shouldn't have done and give me a blank, beautiful piece of white paper to start this year with. I know you want to. I believe in you, God, more than I believe in myself. I believe in your mercy more than your judgment. Because you created us with your mercy in mind. Even though we're created in judgment with perfect balance between right and wrong, good and bad, etc., I know your mercy, you created it to show it, to go beyond the law, to show us that there's something beyond the law. And that's God's mercy for us and for all His creation. And as bad as things look wherever you are, in whatever war that surrounds you, and here in Israel, we know a little bit about that, we still believe that it's going to be good. And we have to. And when we do, He says, how can I not answer him? Look at, Avraham believes in me, even though his son's out in battle and his nephews are commandos. And no, I believe in him, and he returns that belief. It's a reflexive quality. And we have that relationship. When we exercise the relationship, we create the vessel for God to answer us with that higher mercy. We should all merit that soon. Have an easy Yom Kippur. We'll be in touch.